Hey guys, welcome back. Thomas here. I've been getting a few requests to say and to show all of the 3D printed parts that I have used on my 2019 Jeep Wrangler JLU. So I thought I would make a video and show everything that I have used my 3D printer for. So if you have watched more than one of my videos, you would probably have seen that I like 3D printing, and I always try to 3D print something for my Jeep with one of my DIY projects. If it is something from a light mount up to a rain gutter mount up to my roof rails, something always has a 3D printed part in it. So in today's video, I'm going to show you everything that I have 3D printed, and then you guys can see how helpful and how useful a 3D printer is. Now, full disclosure, some of these things are my own ideas, some of them I have adapted from other people, but most of these designs, I think 95% of them, are my own designs and my own prints. And if it's not my own print, I'll tell you guys in the video for that as well. But yeah, so without further ado, let's jump into getting to show you guys all of the 3D printed parts on this Jeep. Before we go though, guess how many parts I have 3D printed for the Jeep. Take a guess, write it in the comments below, and if you're close, we can celebrate it. I don't have anything to give away yet. Hopefully soon we'll get something like that. So without further ado, here we go. Okay, so let's start in the front of the Jeep. From here, I can see three things that I have 3D printed. Number one, my license plate holder that covers my winch. This is 3D printed with some normal steel hinges just to cover my winch fair lead. This little badge, Off-Roading Noob Special Edition, is 3D printed so that it would match the winch that I got for super cheap. The previous owner of the winch lost this cap over here, and there was a switch over here. These two caps are also 3D printed. So technically that's four things already, and I said I only saw three. Next one are these light mounts for my cowl, my A-pillar light mounts. They have been holding up really well. They have become a little bit loose, but I just need to tie them down again. But they are holding up really good, especially in the UAE heat. And I'm thinking about adapting them a little bit, but they are holding up. It was a good first try, and it's a good idea. Super cheap as well. Under the hood, I have my brain box for my switch holder that has been 3D printed in this lime green color. I love the lime green, and it holds the switch box in place along with the fuse for that without having any other issues. It keeps it out of the way, and it's in a nice location. The plates that came with the switch box didn't work, so there you go, 3D printed. Now some of you would say this is overkill, and it probably is, but I saw these aerial covers being sold at ridiculous amounts of money. So I thought I would 3D print one and add a little touch of LED flair to it as well to match the color of the Jeep. So for my personal preference, and being a cheapskate, I have two 3D prints that you can see from my current position. Number one is this 8-way light switch holder. Now, this doesn't look as nice. I did use some masking tape to cover up some of the open double-sided tape, but this holds my light switch in place. If I switch my car on, you will see there it goes. So that looks pretty nice to me, and it's nice and out of the way. You knock your knee on it the first 2 or 3 times you get into the Jeep, but then after that, it's good. you learn not to do it. The second one just above it is this cell phone holder. Now recently I saw that people can put one up here, or you can put one down here that are made of aluminium. And I thought, hey, why can't I just make it out of 3D printing? So very, very cheap one. I designed the red cap that you can see. It's supposed to be black. I just didn't have black filament at the time. And then I made this little sheath that goes into the normal bolt that holds your handlebar. It's an M8 hex screw that I put in there, and this was cheap. I bought it off of Amazon for like 4 or 5 dirhams, so that gravity pulling that will pull your phone tight when you're off-roading so that it doesn't fall out. Now let's jump a little bit deeper into the Jeep. On my dashboard I have these 2 phone mounts as well that I 3D printed. One to hold my tablet when I am off-roading for my Gaia or my other navigational applications. So that's why there's 2. I told my wife it's his and hers, you know, so that I can put my phone on the one side, she can put her phone on the other side. But it was actually to hold the tablet. Now the tablet can go either above the screen or go under the screen, depending on the need that I have for it. It goes over the screen when I'm off-roading, so that when it bumps, some of the weight gets transferred onto the ledge over here, so that it doesn't fall off that easily. Another thing that I 3D printed here on the inside is you will see a winch switch over here that is hard mounted inside the Jeep. So what I did was I took this little cubby out and I 3D printed a faceplate with brackets so that I can put a switch down there. There are other companies that have similar pieces. This is an idea that I took from one of them, and I put my hard mount in there, and I can add more switches down there if I really want to. But since I have my 8-way light switch over here, I don't really need anything more there. But the winch switch down here is good, and that is also, I first have to switch on a switch from here for the hard mounted winch switch to work from there. This little green thing, this little thing is one of my favorite 3D prints that I have done for the Jeep, and probably one of the most functional parts that I have done for my Jeep. When we go off-roading, we use walkie-talkies that are frequency adjustable, so that when we go into the desert, different convoys can have different frequencies to go in the same area without interfering with each other. Now, my walkie-talkie has a microphone with it, and these two always go all over the place, especially if you hit one of those bumps that you didn't think of or that you didn't see. They just go all over the place, which is why I designed this little 3D print with an old cell phone mount, magnetic cell phone mount that I had. What this does is it slides onto my hardtop holder right here, onto my hardtop latch. The walkie-talkies clip slides in, and you can hear that click. That keeps it in place so that it doesn't fall out. And then the magnet part holds my microphone in place, so that while I'm driving, I can just grab it, communicate with my convoy, and put it back on there. Now, sometimes this does fall off, but even if it does fall off, it's still within reach, and I can quickly and easily put it back in place. So that is absolutely one of my favorite, if not the favorite, 3D print that I have made for the Jeep for off-roading so far. Now, if you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen that I have made these cubbies to hold my recovery gear and whatever not in it. On the one side, there's recovery gear. On the other side, other bits and pieces. But the 3D print that I made is over here. One tire pressure gauge that can slide into place, and another tire deflator that goes into the back side of it. So, there we go. And then this just goes easily into that little slider over there. Also, on the outside of the Jeep, this thing here, there's a little switch, 3D printed holder that I have over here. That is the switch for this dual color light that's on the outside of the Jeep on the awning. So that when we set up, we have some light under the awning. So I thought we could finish the inside of the Jeep and then I'll show you the last couple of things on the outside of the Jeep. Now, last one, well, one of the last ones on the inside. You will see that I have my fire extinguisher mounted nicely on top of the roof of the roll cage. Now, in some cases this doesn't work because the roll cage, those little straps that you buy normally, it makes it fall all over the place. But I have 3D printed these little brackets that hold it in place. It's basically a spacer with two Velcro straps going around. One going around the roll cage, one going around the fire extinguisher to hold it in place. And I did the same thing on the other side. Now these are for my shovel holder, and it holds my shovel nicely in place and out of the way. And even when my trunk is full of stuff, I can still easily reach my shovel and my fire extinguisher. So these are two more 3D printed parts. For the fire extinguisher and for the shovel, I'll mark that as one 3D print, since we are counting how many 3D prints I have in the car. One of the other 3D prints that I've made that I'm super proud of is this part over here. Let me quickly switch on some light on it. So there you go. This is my ARB twin compressors air intakes that I relocated. So that is a 3D printed bracket that holds this in place with a switch. Now my switch is actually a double switch. If you watched my other video, it's a double switch. The first one gets switched on in the front of the Jeep, and then the second one over here, this is where I actually switch on the compressor. But for safety reasons, I have it double switched so that nothing can go wrong. And this is just the two air intakes held in place, out of the way of the place where I mounted my compressor. For my air compressor, my ARB twin compressor, there are a few 3D printed parts in here. If you will see at the bottom here, there is a black piece going out to the bolt over here, and there's a black piece on that side. I made a mount so that I can bolt the compressor down onto the mount, and then the mount can be bolted down into the plastic of the cubby in the back of the Jeep, and that keeps it nice and secure, and it keeps it in a safe position. I made it out of PETG plastic so that it is heat resistant and UV resistant, so that it won't change shape when the compressor gets hot from working. And then the orange pipes just go up to my air intake relocation spot. Last one before exiting the Jeep, you can see the lime green fairing cover, whatever that is. It's basically a hole that I drilled through the plastic so that my air compressor's hose can go into the chassis of the Jeep. This is for my 4-way inflation system that I can inflate all 4 tires at the same time. In each wheel well, I have a quick release and one of those 3D printed parts that holds the quick release in there nicely in place. And in the front, they look like this. And this is just so that I can have a short piece of pipe that goes from there and connects to my valve so that I can inflate all 4 tires at the same time and go have a chat with my mates while I inflate and deflate. So yeah, that is my air system 3D prints in all 4 wheel arches. Now if you follow me on Instagram, once again, you would have recently seen that I've made my own roof rack bar to hold my awning on the Jeep, since I couldn't find a cheap enough one that I wanted only to hold my awning. And then you would see that I've also made a jerry can holder, DIY style. Those both have 3D printed parts in them. Let me show you. On the end cap, just using the flashlight there so that you can see it, on the end cap I 3D printed some plastic caps just to make it look nice. And if you look under there, I made the bars to hold an aluminium bar that goes across, I just made some wedges to hold that in place. And you will also see this part here, 3D printed parts to stop the aluminium from vibrating too much. And I have the same thing on the rear. It just looks a little bit different, and it holds it in place nicely there. For my jerry can holder, this is a test. This is still in progress, and I really, fingers crossed, hope that it works. I 3D printed some gutter clamps and some clamps at the bottom to hold this thing in place. Let me show you. So this is a piece of aluminium that was cut and bent, and then you will see inside of it there, and in there you can see the patterns of the 3D printing with a bolt going through it to hold it in place, and that clamps down on the rain gutter to hold this whole thing in place, and that carries basically all the weight of the jerry can. Down here I also 3D printed a part, right? Now that doesn't focus. There is the 3D printed part and another 3D printed part. The bottom 3D printed part gets bolted into the top part, which is bolted down over here onto the aluminium, and then this part pulls nice and tight into the hardtop. So it basically pulls it tight like that, and that is my jerry can holder with some 3D printed parts. On the back of the Jeep, when we do off-road off-road driving, we have a flag that goes up there. I have added some lights to my flag, and for those lights I made this little 3D printed bracket. You take the cap off and there is a light or a power socket in there. Another little 3D print. This one is purely for vanity. It's a little Poseidon's trident that I 3D printed and put on my gas cap holder just for giggles, and I think it looks pretty cool. I think it would have almost looked better if I could color match the 3D printed parts with the Jeep. It would make it stand out a little bit more. And on the inside of the gas cap, you will see I have another ARB air release. That has a little 3D printed part on the back of it, just to wedge it in a different direction. You can see the green in the back there. Just to wedge it out of the way, I actually need to change the direction that goes so that it's a little bit more out of the way of my gas cap. And then one of the last ones is one of the most recent 3D prints that I made for my car. Usually when you put different rims, bigger tires on the back of your Jeep, your spare wheel, if you keep it on your standard spare wheel carrier, either gets crushed if you keep it standard rims and your old rims with fatter tires, or in my case, there is a gap between the tire and the old bump stops, which means that as you go down the road, your back tire wobbles a lot. So I saw some people make it out of PVC pipes, make bump stop extensions. I saw people buying bump stop extensions, which were crazy expensive. So what I did was 3D printed, right? So as you can see there, sorry for all the dust, this is my normal bump stop, and this is my extra piece of 3D printed bump stop extension. I made it in a double step so that one piece can go into the old bump stop and then a fatter piece coming out of the bump stop to hold the tire nicely in place. So now you will see, as I close my door, this is a lot more rigid than it used to be. It still wobbles a little bit, but it's a lot more rigid. I think it's because of bigger tires, heavier rims on your standard door locks. So with this in place, it actually keeps it a lot better than it used to. Okay guys, so that is all of my 3D printed parts that I have on the Jeep. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments below. Or if you want, follow my Instagram. There you'll see some of my crazy things that I get up to before I put them on YouTube. Sometimes I don't put them on YouTube and I only keep them on there, and then they only get a short feature like they did today. But if you have any questions, please ask them in the comments. And if you like the video, leave a like. If you want to see me do some more stuff like this in the future, please subscribe. And then, yeah, if you have a comment, leave it, ask me, and then we'll see how it goes. Guys, I will see you guys in the next one, and thanks for watching. Cheers.